Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 1. The morning after leaving the lighthouse, Ethan followed a quiet road that wound gently through rolling green hills. The sea slowly disappeared behind him. Its peaceful waves became distant memories, carried softly within his heart. Ahead, the landscape began to change. Tall pine trees stood like silent guardians along the mountain trail. The air felt cooler, cleaner. Every breath carried the fresh scent of pine needles, wild moss, and damp earth after an early morning mist. Birdsong echoed gently through the forest. Somewhere in the distance, a small stream flowed over smooth stones, creating a soft melody that blended with the whispering wind. Ethan smiled. Every journey seemed to begin with a quiet invitation from nature. His brown backpack felt a little heavier now. Inside were Samuel's 3 river stones, Margaret's smooth white seashell, the pale blue sea glass, the tiny brass compass, and his notebook, now filled with peaceful memories. Each treasure reminded him that beautiful places leave gifts far beyond what our eyes can see. The mountain path slowly climbed higher. Golden sunlight filtered through the tall pine trees, creating dancing patterns on the forest floor. Tiny wild mushrooms grew beside fallen logs. Bright red berries peeked through green bushes. A curious squirrel paused on a tree branch, watching Ethan before disappearing into the forest. The higher he climbed, the quieter the world became. No rushing rivers, no crashing waves, only the gentle whisper of the wind moving through thousands of pine branches. It sounded almost like the forest was breathing. After several hours of peaceful walking, Ethan reached the top of a gentle ridge. He stopped. Far below, nestled between towering mountains, lay a lake unlike any he had ever seen. Its water was perfectly still, so clear that it reflected the sky, the clouds, and the surrounding mountains like a giant mirror. Not a single ripple disturbed its surface. Near the edge of the lake stood a small wooden cabin. Its roof was covered with soft green moss. A thin ribbon of smoke curled lazily from its stone chimney. Beside the cabin stood an old wooden dock stretching quietly into the crystal clear water. A tiny rowboat rested there, gently touching the shore. The entire valley seemed untouched by time. No roads, no crowds, only mountains, pine forests, and the silent lake. Ethan took a slow breath. The cool mountain air filled his lungs. Somehow, without knowing why, he felt that this peaceful valley had been waiting for him. With calm footsteps and a heart full of quiet curiosity, he began walking down the winding trail toward the forgotten cabin beside the silent mountain lake. Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 2. The winding trail led Ethan gently down into the quiet valley. With every step, the air became cooler and fresher. The scent of pine trees grew stronger, mixed with the sweet fragrance of wildflowers blooming along the mountainside. Above him, the morning sky was a brilliant shade of blue. A pair of hawks circled gracefully over the distant peaks, carried effortlessly by the mountain breeze. The valley below remained perfectly still. The lake shimmered like polished glass. Its surface reflected every cloud, every tree, and every snow-capped mountain with breathtaking clarity. It was impossible to tell where the mountains ended and where their reflections began. Ethan paused beside a small wooden sign. Its weathered letters had faded with time. It simply read, Silent Lake. Nothing more. No directions. No warnings. Just two quiet words. He smiled. The name suited the place perfectly. As he continued walking, he noticed delicate purple wildflowers growing between smooth gray stones. Tiny butterflies floated lazily from blossom to blossom. Nearby, a family of rabbits hopped quietly through the tall grass before disappearing beneath the pine trees. The forest felt wonderfully alive, yet peacefully silent. Soon, Ethan reached the edge of the lake. The water was so clear that he could see smooth stones resting on the lake bed several feet below. Tiny silver fish moved slowly through the crystal clear water. Their gentle movements created small ripples that disappeared almost as quickly as they appeared. A narrow wooden dock stretched into the lake. Its aged planks creaked softly beneath the breeze. At the end of the dock rested a small rowboat. Its faded blue paint showed the marks of many peaceful seasons. A single wooden paddle lay neatly inside. Someone clearly cared for it. Ethan knelt beside the water. He dipped his fingertips into the lake. The water was cool, pure, refreshing. Small circles spread gently across the mirror-like surface before fading into perfect stillness once again. Just then, he heard the soft sound of an axe striking wood. Thump. A pause. Thump. The sound came from somewhere behind the cabin. Slow. Steady. Never hurried. Ethan stood and quietly followed the sound. As he walked around the cabin, he saw an elderly man splitting firewood beside a neat stack of logs. His silver beard reached almost to his chest. He wore a thick green wool sweater, sturdy brown boots, and a wide-brimmed felt hat. Beside him sat an old golden retriever with kind eyes and a gently wagging tail. The dog looked at Ethan for a moment, then slowly walked over and greeted him with a friendly nudge. The old man smiled without stopping his work. I see Maple has already decided you're a friend. Ethan laughed softly as he gently scratched the dog's ears. My name is Ethan. The old man leaned the axe against the chopping block and extended his hand. I'm Oliver. Welcome to Silent Lake. His voice was calm and warm, like someone who had spent many years listening more than speaking. Behind Oliver, smoke drifted lazily from the cabin chimney. The smell of burning pine wood mixed with the crisp mountain air. Somewhere in the nearby forest, a woodpecker tapped rhythmically against an old tree. The lake remained perfectly still. The mountain stood quietly around the valley. And somehow, Ethan already felt that this forgotten cabin held another peaceful story waiting to unfold. Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 3. Oliver smiled warmly as Maple rested quietly beside Ethan. The old golden retriever wagged his tail once, then settled comfortably in the soft grass near the chopping block. The mountain breeze carried the gentle scent of pine wood and fresh cedar through the valley. Oliver picked up another small log and placed it carefully on the chopping block. With one smooth swing, thump, the log split neatly in two. He smiled. Firewood teaches patience, he said softly. If you rush, the wood becomes stubborn, but if you work calmly, it almost seems to help you. Ethan watched with quiet curiosity. There was something peaceful about the way Oliver moved. Nothing felt hurried. Every action had its own gentle rhythm. After placing the axe aside, Oliver brushed the sawdust from his hands. "Come," he said. "I've just made fresh tea. The morning is too beautiful to spend standing." Together they walked toward the little cabin. Maple trotted happily beside them. The cabin looked even more charming up close. Its walls were built from weathered pine logs. Bright green moss-covered parts of the wooden roof. Colorful flower boxes rested beneath every window. Bluebells, white daisies, small purple lavender blossoms. A tiny wind chime hung beside the front door. Whenever the mountain breeze touched it, it produced soft crystal notes that floated peacefully through the valley. Oliver opened the wooden door. A warm wave of comforting air welcomed them inside. The cabin smelled of cedar wood, fresh bread, and herbal tea. Sunlight poured through the windows, filling the room with a gentle golden glow. Everything inside was simple. A stone fireplace stood quietly in one corner. A thick woven rug covered the wooden floor. Books filled handmade shelves along the walls. Near the largest window stood a comfortable rocking chair overlooking the silent lake. A small kettle rested above the fireplace. Steam curled gently from its spout. Oliver poured warm mountain herb tea into 2 handmade clay mugs. The tea carried the delicate aroma of chamomile, mint, and wild mountain flowers. Ethan wrapped both hands around the warm mug. Its gentle heat felt comforting after the cool mountain air. They sat together near the window. Outside, the lake reflected the mountains perfectly. Not even the slightest breeze disturbed its surface. "It almost looks like a mirror," Ethan whispered. Oliver smiled. "Many people think the lake is silent." He looked out the window. "But if you sit quietly enough, you'll hear it speaking." Ethan listened carefully. At first, he heard nothing. Then, very slowly, he noticed tiny sounds he had overlooked before. The soft rustling of pine branches, the distant song of a mountain thrush, the gentle splash of a fish rising briefly to the surface, the whisper of the wind moving across the valley. None of them were loud. Together, they created the peaceful voice of the lake. Oliver nodded gently. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the presence of peace. Those words settled softly into Ethan's heart. After finishing their tea, Oliver stood and picked up 2 warm wool blankets hanging beside the fireplace. "There's a place across the lake," he said with a quiet smile. "I've visited every morning for nearly 40 years. Very few people know it's there." He handed 1 blanket to Ethan. "We'll take the little rowboat. The water is calm today, and the lake always enjoys quiet company." Ethan smiled. Outside, the sunlight shimmered softly across the crystal-clear water. The little blue rowboat waited patiently beside the wooden dock. Another peaceful adventure was about to begin. Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 4. Oliver gently folded the 2 wool blankets and placed them inside the little blue rowboat. Maple wagged his tail excitedly. With one graceful leap, the old golden retriever climbed into the front of the boat and settled comfortably, as though he had made this journey hundreds of times before. Ethan smiled. "It looks like Maple knows exactly where we're going." Oliver chuckled softly. "He probably does. He remembers this lake better than I do." The old man untied the rope from the wooden dock. With a gentle push, the little boat drifted quietly onto the crystal-clear water. There was no engine, no loud sound, only the soft splash of a wooden paddle touching the lake. Dip, glide, dip, glide. Each stroke sent tiny ripples across the mirror-like surface. Within moments, the lake became perfectly still again. Ethan looked down into the water. It was so clear that he could see smooth white stones resting at the bottom. Small rainbow trout glided gracefully beneath the boat. Their silver scales shimmered whenever sunlight reached the water. Above them, the mountains stood silently around the valley. Their snow-covered peaks reflected perfectly on the lake. It felt as though the boat was floating between two skies, one above, one below. The cool mountain breeze carried the sweet scent of pine trees across the water. Somewhere high above, an eagle soared effortlessly between the cliffs. Its wide wings barely moved as it floated upon the morning air. Oliver rested the paddle for a moment. The boat continued drifting peacefully. "This lake has taught me something important," he said quietly. Ethan looked toward him. "It reminds me that life doesn't always need pushing. Sometimes, if you stop rowing for a while, the quiet current knows exactly where to carry you." Ethan watched the gentle movement of the boat. It drifted slowly across the still water without any effort at all. The feeling was wonderfully peaceful. Maple lifted his head. His ears twitched gently. He looked toward the northern shore. Oliver smiled. "I think our friend has spotted them." "Spotted what?" Ethan asked softly. Oliver simply pointed. Near the edge of the forest, a family of deer stepped carefully toward the lake. There were two graceful doves, and a tiny fawn with white spots across its back. They walked slowly to the water's edge. The little fawn lowered its head and took a careful drink. Its reflection shimmered perfectly beside it. No one moved. Neither Ethan, nor Oliver, nor Maple. Even the birds seemed to grow quieter. For several peaceful moments, the entire valley shared one beautiful silence. Eventually, the deer lifted their heads. They looked toward the little boat without fear. Then, with slow and gentle steps, they disappeared once again among the tall pine trees. Ethan let out a quiet breath. "That was beautiful." Oliver nodded. "Nature gives its finest moments to those who are willing to wait." The boat continued gliding toward the far side of the lake. Ahead, hidden beneath the shade of towering pine trees, Ethan noticed something he hadn't seen before. A small wooden gazebo stood on a grassy point overlooking the water. Its roof was covered with climbing ivy. A narrow stone path led into the forest beyond it. Oliver smiled gently. "That's where we're going. My favorite place in the entire valley." The boat drifted silently toward the quiet shore, while the mountains watched peacefully from above, and the silent lake reflected another perfect morning. Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 5. The little blue rowboat drifted gently toward the quiet shore. The water remained as smooth as polished glass. Only the soft movement of the paddle created delicate ripples that slowly faded behind them. Dip, glide, dip, glide. The peaceful rhythm blended perfectly with the whispering wind moving through the tall pine trees. As they reached the wooden dock, Oliver stepped out first and secured the boat with an old hemp rope. Maple jumped lightly onto the grass and stretched happily before trotting ahead along the narrow stone path. "He always likes to lead the way," Oliver said with a smile. Ethan followed quietly, taking in every detail around it. The forest here felt older. The pine trees were taller than any he had seen before. Their trunks were thick with soft green moss. Sunlight filtered through the branches in long golden rays, painting gentle patterns across the forest floor. The air carried the earthy scent of moss, cedar, and damp leaves. Tiny white mushrooms grew beside fallen logs. Small ferns covered the ground like a soft green carpet. Every few moments, a pine cone would fall gently to the earth with a quiet tap. The forest wasn't silent. It simply spoke very softly. After a short walk, they reached the ivy-covered gazebo. It stood on a small grassy hill overlooking the entire lake. The wooden structure had aged beautifully. Its beams were wrapped in climbing ivy, and delicate white flowers bloomed around its base. Inside the gazebo stood a round wooden table and two handcrafted chairs. Everything was simple. Everything was peaceful. Oliver placed the wool blankets across the chairs. "This is where I drink my tea every morning," he said. "I've watched hundreds of sunrises from this very spot." Ethan looked out across the lake. From here, the valley looked even more breathtaking. The snow-covered mountains reflected perfectly on the crystal-clear water. The cabin appeared tiny in the distance, resting peacefully beneath the towering pines. A gentle breeze moved across the lake, creating the smallest ripples before disappearing again. Oliver reached into a woven basket he had brought with him. Inside were fresh blueberry muffins, slices of homemade bread, mountain honey, and a small glass jar filled with wild strawberry jam. He poured warm herbal tea into two wooden cups. Steam rose gently into the cool mountain air. The sweet aroma of chamomile and fresh mint surrounded them. They enjoyed their simple breakfast without rushing. No phones, no clocks, no noise. Only birdsong, the wind, and the silent lake. As Ethan finished his tea, Maple suddenly lifted his head. His ears twitched. He looked toward the edge of the forest. A moment later, a graceful red fox stepped quietly from between the pine trees. Its bright orange coat glowed warmly in the morning sunlight. The fox paused for a moment, calmly observing the gazebo. It showed no fear, only quiet curiosity. Then it continued its slow walk across the meadow before disappearing once again into the forest. Ethan smiled. It's like every animal here knows this place is safe. Oliver nodded gently. Peace has a way of spreading. When we respect nature, nature begins to trust us. Those words stayed with Ethan as he looked once more across the still lake. For a few long moments, neither of them spoke. They simply breathed the fresh mountain air, listened to the whispering pines, and allowed the quiet beauty of the valley to settle gently into their hearts. After a while, Oliver stood and smiled. "There's one more place I'd like to show you before the afternoon. It's hidden deep within the forest. A place where the oldest tree in the valley has been standing for hundreds of years." Ethan's eyes brightened with quiet excitement. He picked up his backpack, and together with Oliver and Maple, he followed the winding forest trail toward another peaceful secret waiting beneath the mountain pines. Part 6. Oliver, Ethan, and Maple followed the narrow forest trail as it wound gently beneath the towering pine trees. The forest grew quieter with every step. Sunlight filtered through the branches in long golden beams, creating a peaceful dance of light and shadow across the moss-covered ground. The air was cool and wonderfully fresh. It carried the rich scent of pine needles, cedar bark, and damp earth. Every deep breath felt calming. Maple trotted a few steps ahead, his tail wagging gently as he explored the familiar path. From time to time, he paused to sniff a patch of wildflowers before happily continuing on. The trail crossed a tiny wooden bridge over a clear mountain stream. Crystal clear water flowed gently beneath it, slipping over smooth stones with a soft, soothing melody. Trickle, ripple, trickle, ripple. Ethan stopped for a moment. He leaned against the wooden railing and watched tiny fish swimming effortlessly in the shallow water. Above the stream, delicate dragonflies hovered in the sunlight, their wings sparkling like tiny pieces of glass. Oliver smiled. This stream begins high in the mountains. It has traveled for hundreds of years, and yet, it never seems to hurry. Ethan nodded. He noticed how everything in the valley moved with quiet patience. The water, the wind, the trees, even the clouds drifted slowly above the mountain peaks. Soon, the forest opened into a peaceful clearing. At its center stood the oldest tree Ethan had ever seen. It was an enormous ancient pine. Its trunk was so wide that several people could have joined hands and still not reached around it. Its bark was deeply textured, carrying the gentle marks of countless seasons. Its massive branches stretched gracefully toward the sky like welcoming arms. Soft green moss covered the roots. Wildflowers bloomed all around its base. The entire clearing felt sacred. Maple quietly lay down beneath the tree, resting comfortably in its cool shade. Oliver removed his hat and smiled warmly. This tree has stood here for more than 300 years. It has watched every sunrise, every snowfall, every spring. It has welcomed birds, deer, foxes, and travelers alike. Ethan slowly walked closer. He gently placed one hand against the rough bark. The tree felt strong, steady, timeless. For a moment, he closed his eyes. A gentle breeze moved through the branches high above. The pine needles whispered softly together. It almost sounded as if the ancient tree itself was quietly telling a story. Not with words, but with the peaceful language of nature. Oliver sat on a smooth stone nearby. "When I was a young boy," he said softly, "my grandfather brought me here. He told me that trees teach us one of life's greatest lessons." Ethan looked toward him. Oliver smiled. "They grow a little every year. They never rush. They simply keep reaching toward the light." Those simple words settled gently into Ethan's heart. He looked up through the towering branches. Sunlight streamed between the needles, filling the clearing with a warm golden glow. High above, a family of small birds had built a nest among the branches. The tiny chicks chirped softly as their parents returned with food. Life moved peacefully all around them. Without hurry, without worry, Oliver stood and brushed a few pine needles from his sweater. "The afternoon is still young," he said with a gentle smile. "Not far from here is a beautiful meadow where mountain flowers bloom beneath the snow-capped peaks. It's one of the quietest places in the entire valley." Ethan smiled. Another peaceful path, another hidden treasure. Together, with Maple happily leading the way, they continued deeper into the mountain forest, where the whispering pines slowly gave way to open skies and fields of wildflowers. End of part 6. Continue in part 7. Hashtag episode 4. The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Hashtag part 7. Episode 4. The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 7. Leaving the ancient pine behind, Ethan, Oliver, and Maple continued along the quiet mountain trail. The forest slowly began to change. The tall pine trees became farther apart. More sunlight reached the ground. The air felt warmer as the afternoon quietly settled over the valley. Ahead, Ethan noticed patches of colorful flowers appearing between the trees. Blue, yellow, white, purple. Each blossom swayed gently in the cool mountain breeze. Soon, the trail opened into a wide alpine meadow. Ethan stopped in amazement. Before him stretched a field of wildflowers that seemed to have no end. Thousands of blossoms covered the gentle hillside beneath the snow-capped mountains. The colors flowed together like a beautiful painting. Butterflies drifted lazily from flower to flower. Honeybees hummed softly as they gathered nectar. The entire meadow seemed alive with quiet beauty. Oliver smiled. This is called Sunrise Meadow. Every spring and summer, the mountains paint it with flowers. Maple ran happily through the soft grass before lying down beneath a small birch tree. He rolled onto his back with complete contentment. Ethan laughed quietly. I think Maple has found his favorite place. Oliver chuckled. He says that about every peaceful place. Together, they walked slowly through the meadow. Neither of them hurried. They stopped often to admire the tiny details. A ladybug climbing a blade of grass. A butterfly resting on a blue flower. A feather floating gently through the air. Even the wind seemed slower here. It moved softly across the meadow, creating gentle waves through the tall grass. The flowers bowed together, then slowly stood upright again, almost like the meadow itself was breathing. Near the center of the field stood a large, smooth boulder warmed by the afternoon sun. Oliver sat down upon it. Ethan joined him. From there, they could see almost the entire valley. The silent lake sparkled in the distance. The little wooden cabin rested peacefully among the pine trees. Thin white smoke still drifted lazily from its chimney. Far above, the snowy mountain peaks touched the clouds. Oliver spoke softly. When I first came here many years ago, I believed I needed to travel the whole world to find happiness. He smiled gently. But the mountains taught me something different. Ethan listened quietly. Happiness isn't always somewhere far away. Sometimes, it's sitting on a warm rock, watching flowers dance in the wind. Those words settled gently into the peaceful afternoon. A small breeze carried the sweet fragrance of lavender and wild mountain flowers across the meadow. Somewhere nearby, a gentle bell rang softly. Ethan looked around. High on a distant hillside, a small flock of sheep grazed peacefully beneath the watchful eye of an old shepherd. The tiny bells around their necks created a quiet melody that blended perfectly with the wind. Ding, pause, ding, pause. The sound echoed softly across the valley. Maple lifted his head for a moment. He listened, then happily closed his eyes again. The warm afternoon sun made everything feel calm. Safe, comfortable. Ethan leaned back against the smooth boulder. Above him, fluffy white clouds drifted slowly across the bright blue sky. He watched them without thinking, without worrying, simply watching. For several peaceful minutes, time itself seemed to slow down. Oliver smiled quietly. There is one final place I'd like to show you before sunset. A place where the mountains reflect perfectly upon the lake, and where the evening light turns the whole valley into gold. Ethan stood, feeling refreshed. He smiled. "Let's go." Together, the three friends left the flower-filled meadow and followed a narrow trail that gently descended toward the quiet lakeshore, where another unforgettable evening awaited them. Episode 4: The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 9. The last notes of Oliver's wooden flute slowly disappeared into the evening air. Silence gently returned to the valley. Not an empty silence, but one filled with peace. The sun had nearly reached the mountain peaks. Its golden light painted the lake in soft shades of amber, rose, and crimson. Every ripple shimmered like liquid gold. Ethan sat quietly beneath the willow tree, watching the changing colors of the sky. The cool breeze gently moved through the long branches above him. They swayed slowly, almost as if the tree itself was humming a quiet lullaby. Maple stretched lazily beside the bench before standing up. He walked toward the shoreline and dipped one paw into the cool water. Tiny circles spread across the lake before fading away. Oliver smiled. He always checks the water before sunset. I've never understood why. Perhaps it's simply part of his evening routine. Ethan laughed softly. Maybe the lake is saying goodnight. Oliver nodded. I wouldn't be surprised. Together, they began walking slowly along the lakeshore. The narrow path curved gently between smooth stones and clusters of wildflowers. Small lanterns hung from wooden posts beside the trail. As the daylight faded, they began to glow one by one. Their warm amber light reflected softly upon the crystal clear water. The path looked almost magical. Ahead, they reached a small wooden pier extending quietly into the lake. Two old rocking chairs waited at the end. A tiny lantern rested on a round wooden table between them. Oliver lit the lantern. Its gentle flame flickered warmly against the deepening blue of the evening. They sat together in the rocking chairs. The chairs moved slowly. Forward, back, forward, back. The peaceful motion matched the rhythm of the gentle waves. Far across the lake, the snowy mountains slowly disappeared into soft purple shadows. The first stars appeared overhead. One, then another, then dozens more. Their reflections sparkled upon the silent lake until it looked like the sky itself had fallen into the water. Ethan looked upward. I've never seen so many stars. Oliver smiled. The mountains keep the skies wonderfully dark. The stars enjoy visiting places where the world is quiet. Maple curled up beside the chairs and sighed contentedly. The old dog soon drifted into a peaceful sleep. His slow breathing blended naturally with the gentle sounds of the valley. Oliver looked toward the cabin in the distance. Warm light now glowed from its windows. Smoke rose softly from the chimney. It will be cold tonight, he said gently. I've already prepared the fireplace. Ethan nodded. The thought of a warm fire after the cool mountain evening sounded comforting. Before they stood to leave, Oliver quietly pointed toward the northern sky. A ribbon of pale green light slowly appeared above the distant mountains. It shimmered gently across the darkness. Soft waves of light danced silently among the stars. Ethan stared in amazement. What is it? Oliver smiled. Sometimes, on the clearest nights, the mountains receive a small gift from the sky. The northern lights. They watched quietly as the delicate green glow slowly moved across the heavens. There was no sound, only light, only wonder, only peace. For several long minutes, neither of them spoke. Some moments are too beautiful for words. Eventually, Oliver stood and picked up the lantern. Come, the fire is waiting. Together, Ethan, Oliver, and Maple followed the softly glowing path back toward the little cabin. Behind them, the lake reflected the stars, the mountains, and the gentle dancing lights above. It was a night Ethan knew he would remember for the rest of his life. Hashtag Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Hashtag Part 9. The last notes of Oliver's wooden flute slowly disappeared into the evening air. Silence gently returned to the valley. Not an empty silence, but one filled with peace. The sun had nearly reached the mountain peaks. Its golden light painted the lake in soft shades of amber, rose, and crimson. Every ripple shimmered like liquid gold. Ethan sat quietly beneath the willow tree, watching the changing colors of the sky. The cool breeze gently moved through the long branches above him. They swayed slowly, almost as if the tree itself was humming a quiet lullaby. Maple stretched lazily beside the bench before standing up. He walked toward the shoreline and dipped one paw into the cool water. Tiny circles spread across the lake before fading away. Oliver smiled. He always checks the water before sunset. I've never understood why. Perhaps it's simply part of his evening routine. Ethan laughed softly. Maybe the lake is saying goodnight. Oliver nodded. I wouldn't be surprised. Together, they began walking slowly along the lakeshore. The narrow path curved gently between smooth stones and clusters of wildflowers. Small lanterns hung from wooden posts beside the trail. As the daylight faded, they began to glow one by one. Their warm amber light reflected softly upon the crystal clear water. The path looked almost magical. Ahead, they reached a small wooden pier extending quietly into the lake. Two old rocking chairs waited at the end. A tiny lantern rested on a round wooden table between them. Oliver lit the lantern. Its gentle flame flickered warmly against the deepening blue of the evening. They sat together in the rocking chairs. The chairs moved slowly. Forward, back, forward, back. The peaceful motion matched the rhythm of the gentle waves. Far across the lake, the snowy mountains slowly disappeared into soft purple shadows. The first stars appeared overhead. One, then another, then dozens more. Their reflections sparkled upon the silent lake until it looked like the sky itself had fallen into the water. Ethan looked upward. I've never seen so many stars. Oliver smiled. The mountains keep the skies wonderfully dark. The stars enjoy visiting places where the world is quiet. Maple curled up beside the chairs and sighed contentedly. The old dog soon drifted into a peaceful sleep. His slow breathing blended naturally with the gentle sounds of the valley. Oliver looked toward the cabin in the distance. Warm light now glowed from its windows. Smoke rose softly from the chimney. It will be cold tonight, he said gently. I've already prepared the fireplace. Ethan nodded. The thought of a warm fire after the cool mountain evening sounded comforting. Before they stood to leave, Oliver quietly pointed toward the northern sky. A ribbon of pale green light slowly appeared above the distant mountains. It shimmered gently across the darkness. Soft waves of light danced silently among the stars. Ethan stared in amazement. What is it? Oliver smiled. Sometimes, on the clearest nights, the mountains receive a small gift from the sky. The northern lights. They watched quietly as the delicate green glow slowly moved across the heavens. There was no sound, only light, only wonder, only peace. For several long minutes, neither of them spoke. Some moments are too beautiful for words. Eventually, Oliver stood and picked up the lantern. "Come, the fire is waiting." Together, Ethan, Oliver, and Maple followed the softly glowing path back toward the little cabin. Behind them, the lake reflected the stars, the mountains, and the gentle dancing lights above. It was a night Ethan knew he would remember for the rest of his life. End of Part 9. Continue in Part 10. Episode 4. The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 10. The little lantern cast a warm golden glow along the forest path. Oliver walked ahead with calm, steady steps. Maple followed closely beside him, his tail swaying gently from side to side. Ethan walked behind them, taking one last look at the silent lake. The stars shimmered beautifully upon its crystal-clear surface. The northern lights still danced softly above the distant mountains. It felt as though the valley itself had become a peaceful dream. The cool night air carried the fresh scent of pine trees and cedar wood. Every breath felt calm. Every step felt unhurried. Soon, the warm light of the cabin appeared through the trees. Its windows glowed softly against the darkness. Smoke drifted lazily from the stone chimney into the star-filled sky. Oliver opened the wooden door. A wave of comforting warmth welcomed them inside. The stone fireplace was already burning. Golden flames danced quietly over smooth pieces of pine wood. The crackling fire filled the room with a gentle, relaxing rhythm. Crackle, pause, crackle, pause. Maple walked straight to his favorite woven rug beside the fireplace. With a satisfied sigh, he curled into a comfortable circle and closed his eyes. Oliver smiled. He always claims the best seat. Ethan laughed softly. I don't blame him. Oliver hung the lantern beside the door and disappeared briefly into the kitchen. A few moments later, he returned carrying a wooden tray. On it rested 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate. Beside them sat warm cinnamon rolls fresh from the oven. The sweet aroma of chocolate, cinnamon, and baked bread filled the cozy cabin. They settled into 2 large rocking chairs facing the fireplace. The chairs moved gently. Forward, back, forward, back. Outside, a light mountain breeze whispered through the pine trees. Inside, the fire created a peaceful melody all its own. Oliver handed 1 mug to Ethan. Cold nights always taste better with something warm. Ethan wrapped both hands around the mug. Its comforting warmth spread through his fingers. He took a slow sip. The rich chocolate blended perfectly with the cool mountain evening. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The fire, the wind, the quiet breathing of Maple, everything together created a deep feeling of peace. Oliver finally reached toward a small wooden shelf above the fireplace. He carefully picked up an old leather-bound photo album. Its edges had softened with age. The cover was decorated with a tiny carving of mountains and pine trees. I haven't looked through this in quite some time, he said. He opened the first page. Inside were photographs taken many years ago. The cabin surrounded by deep winter snow. The lake covered with smooth ice beneath a bright full moon. Wildflowers blooming in spring. Golden autumn forests glowing beneath clear skies. Each photograph captured another peaceful season of the valley. Ethan turned the pages slowly. Every picture seemed to hold a quiet memory. Oliver smiled. This valley changes every season, but somehow it always feels like home. The fire burned lower. Its gentle orange light flickered across the wooden walls. Outside, snow began falling lightly from the dark mountain sky. Tiny flakes drifted silently past the windows. The entire valley slowly became covered in a delicate white blanket. Ethan watched quietly. The falling snow, the warm fire, the peaceful cabin, all felt wonderfully comforting. Oliver looked toward the window and smiled. Tomorrow morning, if the snow continues, I'll show you the most beautiful sunrise this valley has to offer. Ethan nodded with quiet excitement. Outside, the snow continued falling in perfect silence. Inside, the fireplace glowed warmly, and the forgotten cabin became the coziest place in the mountains. Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 11. The snow continued to fall gently throughout the night. Each tiny snowflake drifted silently from the sky, settling softly upon the pine trees, the cabin roof, and the quiet shoreline. Outside, the entire valley slowly turned white. Inside the cabin, the warm fire continued to glow. The dancing flames reflected softly across the wooden floor and stone walls. Crackle, pause, crackle, pause. The peaceful rhythm blended with the gentle whisper of the wind outside. Ethan sat comfortably in the rocking chair, wrapped in a thick wool blanket. The warmth of the fireplace made the cabin feel wonderfully cozy. Maple slept peacefully on the woven rug. Occasionally, he twitched one ear as if dreaming of running through the flower-filled meadow. Oliver carefully closed the old photo album and placed it back on the shelf. "There is one tradition I never miss," he said softly. "Every snowy evening, I read a few pages from my grandfather's journal." He walked to a nearby bookshelf and gently removed a small leather notebook. Its pages had turned golden with age. The handwriting inside was neat and graceful. Oliver opened to a favorite page. His voice became calm and gentle as he began to read. "The mountains never ask us to become someone else. They simply invite us to become quieter. When the snow falls, every tree becomes patient. Every lake becomes still. Asterisk, and every heart remembers how peaceful silence can be. Asterisk." The words floated softly through the warm cabin. Ethan listened without speaking. The message felt simple, yet deeply comforting. Oliver smiled as he closed the journal. "My grandfather believed nature was the greatest teacher. He said the forest never raised its voice. And yet, it always had something important to say." Outside, the snowfall became a little heavier. The flakes drifted lazily past the window, glowing softly beneath the lantern hanging beside the front door. The entire world looked peaceful, almost magical. Oliver stood and added another piece of pine wood to the fire. Golden sparks rose gently into the chimney before disappearing. The room grew even warmer. He placed a small iron kettle over the flames. Soon, the comforting aroma of warm chamomile tea filled the cabin once again. They sipped quietly while watching the snow. Neither of them felt the need to fill the silence. Sometimes, sharing a peaceful moment was enough. Hours passed gently. The fire burned lower. The wind outside became softer. The snowfall slowed until only a few tiny flakes continued drifting through the night. Oliver looked toward the window. The sky is clearing. Ethan followed his gaze. The clouds slowly moved away from the mountains. One by one, the stars returned, brighter than before. Their light reflected across the fresh snow, making the valley shimmer beneath the night sky. It felt as though thousands of tiny diamonds had been scattered across the mountainside. Maple slowly stood, stretched, and walked to the front door. He looked outside quietly for a moment before returning to his warm rug. Oliver smiled. "I think tomorrow will be a beautiful morning." He gently placed another blanket over Ethan's shoulders. "You should rest. We'll leave before sunrise. The lake is never more beautiful than after fresh snow." Ethan nodded. He could already imagine the silent valley covered in white, waiting peacefully beneath the first golden light of dawn. The fire continued its gentle lullaby. The mountains slept beneath fresh snow, and the forgotten cabin stood quietly among the pine trees, keeping its warm light shining through the peaceful winter night. Episode 4: The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 12. The night passed quietly beneath a sky filled with countless stars. Outside, the fresh snow rested gently upon the mountains, the pine trees, and the silent lake. The valley seemed wrapped in a soft white blanket. Inside the cabin, the fire had burned down to glowing embers. Their warm orange light flickered gently across the wooden floor. Ethan slept peacefully beneath a thick wool quilt. The quiet crackle of the fireplace and the whisper of the wind outside blended into a gentle lullaby. Long before sunrise, Oliver quietly woke. He moved carefully through the cabin without making a sound. Maple lifted his head, stretched slowly, and greeted the morning with a gentle wag of his tail. Oliver placed another log onto the fireplace. The flames slowly came back to life. Soon, the comforting warmth filled the cabin once again. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee drifted through the room. Alongside it came the sweet scent of warm cinnamon bread baking in the small oven. A few moments later, Ethan opened his eyes. The cabin was still dimly lit. Outside the windows, the world remained blue with the last moments of night. Oliver smiled. "Good morning. It's time." Ethan dressed warmly in a thick mountain coat, a knitted scarf, and wool gloves. The cold air waiting outside would be crisp and refreshing. Before leaving, Oliver handed him a small lantern. "The trail is safe," he whispered, "but the light makes the journey feel even more peaceful." Together, they stepped outside. The cold mountain air gently touched their faces. Fresh snow crunched softly beneath their boots. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. Every sound felt calm and clear. The pine trees sparkled beneath a thin layer of snow. Tiny crystals reflected the light of the fading stars. The lake lay perfectly still before them. Its surface mirrored the deep blue sky above. The mountains appeared twice. Once in the sky, once in the water. Not a single ripple disturbed the reflection. Maple happily trotted ahead, leaving a trail of small paw prints across the untouched snow. His joyful footprints stretched toward the lakeshore. Oliver smiled. He always believes the morning belongs to him. Ethan laughed softly. They followed a narrow path around the edge of the lake. The only sounds were their footsteps, the gentle whisper of the wind, and the distant call of a snowy owl somewhere among the trees. As they reached a small hill overlooking the valley, Oliver stopped. "This is the place." From there, they could see everything. The cabin below, the silent lake, the snow-covered forest, and the towering mountain peaks waiting for the first light of dawn. Slowly, the eastern horizon began to glow. Deep blue became soft violet. Violet turned to pale pink. Then warm shades of gold slowly spread across the sky. The first rays of sunlight touched the highest mountain peak. Within moments, the snow sparkled like millions of tiny diamonds. Golden light flowed gently down the mountainside until it reached the frozen shoreline. Finally, it touched the silent lake. The reflection became almost magical. The valley seemed filled with liquid gold. Ethan stood completely still. He had never seen anything so peaceful. Oliver spoke quietly. "Every sunrise reminds us. No matter how long the night has been, light always returns." Ethan smiled. He took a slow, deep breath. The cold mountain air filled his lungs. The peaceful valley filled his heart. For a long while, they simply stood together, watching the new day quietly awaken. Episode 4: The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 13. The first light of morning slowly spread across the peaceful valley. Golden sunlight touched the snowy mountain peaks one by one. Soon, the light reached the pine forest, the little wooden cabin, and finally, the silent lake. The water shimmered like polished crystal. Every snow-covered tree reflected perfectly upon its calm surface. It was impossible to tell where reality ended and where the reflection began. Ethan stood quietly beside Oliver. Neither of them spoke. The beauty of the moment needed no words. A gentle breeze drifted across the lake. It carried the fresh scent of pine, cedar, and clean mountain snow. Maple ran happily through the untouched snow, leaving playful paw prints behind him. Every few moments, he would stop, look back at Ethan, and wag his tail as if inviting him to follow. Ethan laughed softly. Together, they walked along the lakeshore. The snow crunched gently beneath their boots. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. The only other sound came from tiny birds waking among the pine branches. Their cheerful songs echoed softly across the valley. After a short walk, Oliver stopped beside a small wooden dock. The little blue rowboat rested peacefully where Ethan had first seen it. Now, it wore a delicate blanket of fresh snow. Oliver brushed the snow away with gentle hands. "I think the lake would enjoy one last morning ride," he said with a smile. Ethan nodded. Together, they pushed the boat into the calm water. Without a sound, it floated away from the dock. Oliver picked up the wooden paddle. Dip, glide, dip, glide. The boat moved slowly across the lake. The water remained almost perfectly still. Each paddle stroke created gentle circles that slowly disappeared into silence. Sunlight reflected across the water in thousands of tiny golden sparkles. The mountains surrounded them like quiet guardians. Maple rested comfortably at the front of the boat, watching the shoreline drift by. A family of swans glided gracefully across the opposite side of the lake. Their white feathers blended beautifully with the snowy landscape. Far above, an eagle soared over the mountain peaks. Its shadow passed silently across the water before disappearing into the forest. Oliver rested the paddle for a moment. The boat continued drifting peacefully. "There is something I learned after living here for many years," he said quietly. Ethan looked toward him. We spend so much of our lives searching for extraordinary moments. Oliver smiled warmly. But often, the most extraordinary moments are the quiet ones. The ones we almost overlook. Ethan looked around. The sparkling snow. The crystal clear lake. The gentle morning light. The peaceful silence. He understood. Nothing dramatic was happening, yet everything felt unforgettable. The boat drifted gently toward the center of the lake. Oliver closed his eyes for a brief moment. He took one slow, deep breath. Ethan did the same. The cold mountain air filled his lungs. His heartbeat slowed. His thoughts became still. For those few peaceful moments, the valley seemed to breathe together with them. And somewhere deep inside, Ethan realized that peace was no longer something he was searching for. It had quietly become a part of him. Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 14. The little blue rowboat drifted peacefully across the center of Silent Lake. The morning sun had climbed a little higher now, filling the valley with a gentle golden glow. The fresh snow sparkled on the mountain peaks like countless tiny diamonds. The lake remained perfectly calm. Only the slow movement of the boat created soft ripples that spread gently across the crystal clear water. Dip, glide, dip, glide. Oliver rowed without hurry. His movements were slow, steady, and peaceful. Maple rested quietly at the front of the boat. His eyes were half closed as the cool mountain breeze gently moved through his golden fur. Ethan leaned over the side of the boat. The water was so clear that he could see smooth white stones resting far below. Tiny fish swam gracefully through the sunlight, their silver scales flashing like little stars beneath the surface. It feels like the lake is alive, Ethan whispered. Oliver smiled. It is. Every mountain, every tree, every bird, every drop of water, they all belong to one peaceful family. The boat continued drifting until it reached a small island near the middle of the lake. It was no larger than a garden. Several ancient pine trees stood quietly upon it. Their branches were dusted with fresh snow. At the center of the island stood a tiny wooden gazebo overlooking the water. A narrow stone path curved gently between patches of soft green moss. Oliver guided the boat toward the small dock. As soon as they stepped onto the island, an incredible silence surrounded them. There were no footsteps from other travelers, no roads, no distant voices, only the whisper of the wind moving gently through the pine needles. Whoosh, pause, whoosh, pause. The peaceful sound seemed to slow time itself. Maple happily explored the little island before lying beneath one of the oldest pine trees. Oliver walked toward the gazebo. Inside stood a single wooden bench facing the lake. He gently brushed away a thin layer of snow before sitting down. Ethan joined him. From there, the entire valley stretched before them. The cabin appeared tiny beside the shoreline. The snowy forest surrounded the lake like a protective embrace. Far beyond, the mountain peaks reached toward the bright blue sky. Oliver looked quietly across the water. For many years, I believed I was taking care of this valley. He smiled gently, but one day, I realized it had been taking care of me. Ethan remained silent. Those words felt true. Every peaceful place he had visited, the Whispering River, the secret lighthouse, and now Silent Lake, had quietly changed him in ways he never expected. Oliver reached into the pocket of his old wool coat. He removed a tiny carved wooden pine cone. It had been polished smooth by many years of careful hands. My grandfather carved this for me. He told me something I'll never forget. Oliver placed the little pine cone into Ethan's hand. Strong trees grow slowly. Peaceful hearts do too. Ethan gently closed his fingers around the tiny carving. It felt warm despite the cool mountain air. He smiled. Another small treasure. Another quiet reminder that life's greatest gifts are often the simplest. Above them, a light snowfall began once again. Tiny flakes drifted gently through the air. They landed softly upon the lake before melting into tiny circles. One by one, the circles disappeared until the water became perfectly still once more. The valley seemed wrapped in complete peace. No one spoke. There was nothing more to say. Sometimes, silence tells the most beautiful stories. The little island rested quietly beneath the falling snow, waiting patiently for another peaceful afternoon. Episode 4: The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 15. The gentle snowfall lasted only a few minutes. Soon, the clouds drifted quietly beyond the mountain peaks, revealing a sky of brilliant blue once again. Tiny drops of melted snow sparkled upon the pine branches like clear crystals. The little island seemed even more peaceful after the snow had passed. Oliver and Ethan remained seated inside the wooden gazebo. Neither of them felt any need to hurry. The silence itself had become their companion. Maple slowly stood and stretched beneath the ancient pine tree. He wandered toward the lakeshore, where a family of ducks floated peacefully between patches of reeds. The ducks moved without disturbing the calm water. Their reflections glided beside them like gentle shadows. Oliver smiled. This island has always been my favorite place. When life became difficult, I came here. When life became joyful, I came here. And on ordinary days, I came here as well. Ethan looked across the endless lake. So this place has seen every part of your life. Oliver nodded. And somehow, it welcomed every version of me. A cool breeze drifted gently through the gazebo. The wind carried the clean scent of fresh snow, pine needles, and mountain water. Somewhere nearby, a wind chime hanging from one corner of the gazebo began to sing softly. Chime, pause, chime, pause. Its delicate melody blended beautifully with the whispering trees. After a while, Oliver stood. The afternoon is slipping away. We should return before sunset. They walked slowly back to the small dock. The blue rowboat waited patiently, rocking gently against the wooden posts. Maple jumped aboard first, settling comfortably in his usual place at the front. Oliver untied the rope. With one gentle push, the boat drifted away from the island. Dip, glide, dip, glide. The lake reflected the bright afternoon sky perfectly. Small white clouds floated above them, and beneath them, the boat seemed suspended between two peaceful worlds. Halfway across the lake, Oliver rested the paddle. The current carried them slowly toward the cabin. A family of swans crossed their path. The graceful birds glided silently over the water, their white feathers glowing beneath the afternoon sun. Behind them, several tiny cygnets followed carefully. Ethan smiled. They never leave one another behind. Oliver nodded. Nature has many quiet lessons. Perhaps the greatest one is that every journey becomes lighter when it is shared. The boat continued drifting. The cabin slowly grew larger ahead. Smoke rose gently from its chimney. The flower boxes beneath the windows still held a few late-season blossoms despite the fresh snowfall. Everything looked exactly as Ethan had first seen it. Yet somehow, it felt different now, because he had changed. The valley had quietly taught him patience. The mountains had taught him stillness. The lake had taught him reflection. And Oliver had taught him that peace is something we carry within us. As they reached the dock, Oliver secured the boat once again. The sun was beginning its slow descent behind the western mountains. Golden light filled the valley. Long shadows stretched across the snow. The cabin windows glowed warmly in the afternoon sun. Oliver smiled gently. Tonight, we'll enjoy one final evening beside the fire. And tomorrow morning, your journey will continue. Ethan nodded quietly. He already knew leaving this peaceful valley would not be easy. But he also knew its quiet beauty would stay with him forever. Together, they walked toward the little wooden cabin, while behind them, Silent Lake reflected another perfect mountain sunset. Episode 4, The Silent Mountain Lake and the Forgotten Cabin. Part 16, Final. The final evening settled gently over the valley. The setting sun disappeared behind the snowy mountains, leaving behind a sky painted with soft shades of gold, rose, lavender, and deep blue. The silent lake reflected every color perfectly. It looked as though the heavens themselves had come down to rest upon the water. Oliver, Ethan, and Maple sat together outside the little cabin. A small campfire burned peacefully beside the lakeshore. Its gentle flames danced quietly against the cool mountain air. Crackle, pause, crackle, pause. The comforting sound blended with the whisper of the pine trees. Above them, the first stars slowly appeared. One, then another. Soon, hundreds of tiny lights filled the night sky. Their reflections shimmered across the lake like scattered diamonds. Oliver poured warm chamomile tea into 3 wooden cups. One for himself, one for Ethan, and beside Maple, a small wooden bowl filled with fresh spring water. Maple wagged his tail happily before settling beside the fire. The warmth of the flames made the cool evening feel wonderfully comfortable. For a long while, they simply watched the stars. No conversation, no hurry, only quiet companionship. Finally, Oliver spoke. When I was young, I thought every journey had a destination. He smiled softly. But now I understand. The greatest journeys never truly end. They simply leave a little more peace inside us each time. Ethan looked across the still lake. He thought about Samuel beside the whispering river, Margaret at the lighthouse, and now Oliver in this quiet mountain valley. 3 different people, 3 different places, yet each had offered him the same gentle gift: to slow down, to breathe deeply, to notice the quiet beauty hidden in ordinary moments. Oliver reached into the pocket of his old coat. He carefully removed a tiny folded piece of paper. It was yellow with age. He handed it to Ethan. Inside was a single handwritten sentence. Asterisk, carry peace wherever you go, and every place will become a home. Asterisk. Ethan folded the note carefully and placed it inside his notebook. It would stay beside the river stones, the seashell, the sea glass, the little brass compass, and the carved wooden pine cone. His collection of memories had become a collection of quiet lessons. As the fire slowly burned lower, the moon rose above the eastern mountains. Its silver light spread gently across the valley. The lake glowed like polished glass. The snowy peaks shimmered beneath the stars. Everything seemed perfectly still. Early the next morning, the valley awoke beneath another peaceful sunrise. A thin mist floated gently across the lake. Birdsong welcomed the new day. The pine trees whispered softly in the morning breeze. Oliver stood beside the wooden dock. Maple sat faithfully at his side. Ethan placed his backpack over his shoulder. Before leaving, he looked one final time across Silent Lake. The cabin, the dock, the rowboat, the snowy mountains. Every detail had become part of his heart. Oliver smiled warmly. The mountains will always remember you. And if life ever feels too busy, close your eyes. You'll hear the lake again. Ethan smiled. I will. They shook hands. Maple gently nudged Ethan's hand one last time. Ethan scratched behind his ears and laughed softly. I'll miss you too, old friend. With calm footsteps, Ethan followed the winding trail that climbed out of the valley. When he reached the top of the ridge, he turned for one last look. Far below, Silent Lake shimmered beneath the morning sun. The little wooden cabin rested peacefully among the towering pines. Oliver raised one hand in a quiet farewell. Maple barked once, a soft, friendly sound that echoed gently through the mountains. Ethan waved back. Then he continued his journey, not searching for peace anymore, because he had discovered something far more valuable. Peace was never hidden in a river, a lighthouse, or a mountain lake. Those beautiful places had simply helped him discover the peace that had been quietly waiting inside him all along. And as the mountain breeze carried the scent of pine through the valley, Ethan walked toward his next adventure with a lighter heart, a calmer mind, and the quiet promise that every new path would hold another beautiful story.